Welcome back, everybody. Phil's Flipping Adventures in Nashville. This is the beginning of part 2 on this Cub Cadet project. Part 1, we took the motor out of it. That was a overseas brand servo-operated carburetor that was not working right. It just wouldn't run. Even if you poured fuel in it, it wouldn't run. Had spark. Decided just to opt out of that motor and go to something a little better. In my mind, a more modern Briggs & Stratton. It just happened to come out of a John Deere. I know. Hardcore guys, John Deere, Cub Cadet, John Deere, Cub Cadet. Sorry guys, just what I could get a hold of cheap. So we left you off. We had the motor installed. Full disclosure, I did actually start the motor. It does not run that well. Carburetor's flooding over. That's why you see the vice grips on it. And this video, we're gonna take the carburetor off and see if we can't get it cleaned out, figure out what the problem is. Hopefully we can save the little gaskets inside them. These Nike carburetors are a little tricky. The O-rings, you can't spray them with brake clean or anything. You take them out, just clean them up, put them back in, otherwise they stretch out and they get all distorted, and then you're just starting over anyways. We're also going to figure out the rest of the electric parts. Where we left it is, I'm fairly sure, I have not traced anything out yet. I'm fairly sure that plug is going to go into that plug just fine. Just got to make sure that I'm not sticking 12 volts somewhere where it's supposed to go to ground, or like otherwise don't need to burn out the regulator rectifier or stator or anything like that. Still have the broken tooth on the steering. We'll address that once we get it all going. I did put the battery on the battery charger, and I believe there's a bad connection somewhere in the battery cable. As you can see, we got nothing, but we do have the gauges come up. So I do have 12.6 volts in the battery. So apparently there's a connection problem somewhere. The solenoid is short of that plug on the engine, so there should be nothing stopping it from cranking the motor. I'm going to get this carburetor pulled off and get it in on the table and see what we can find out. Alright, I apologize. I had bad microphone experience here. Plus I got a little bit of bad camera footage too, camera angle. But basically explaining how taking this apart, taking it off the machine, making sure the springs and everything are all good. Explaining how to pull the carburetor apart, checking for the O-rings, that kind of stuff. Got to make sure everything is perfect on these Nikes. There is plenty of information on YouTube about these Nike carburetors. Probably somebody else is going to explain it to you way better than me. Giving you some of the information, the different fuel shutoff solenoids, what they do, how they, as the engine's cranking down, they just plug off the fuel to the main jet so that you don't get the backfire in the muffler. I did get an extra carburetor with this motor, plus I had an old carburetor that was modified for racing laying around from our lawnmower racing days. I put one back together and we got it ready to go and put on the machine, blowing it out a little bit right here, and we're gonna take it outside and put it on the tractor and see if we got any better results than before. Before it wouldn't even run, and it leaked everywhere. So we'll see if we can get this one to at least fire up and run and make some progress forward with it, I guess. Alright, so we're outside here explaining how to put the choke on. The importance of the anti-rattle spring here, the little spring. It needs to be working and functional exactly the way it was intended. The bushing needs to be working exactly the way it was intended from the factory. If there's any slop at all in that rod or that spring is missing, the governor will constantly hunt and peck for a position, and you'll never get rid of the surging. We bolted the carburetor on, we've checked the choke works, gonna hook up the fuel lines, just explaining how the fuel pump works. There's a stone filter in the fuel pump. If there's oil pumping out of that, you're either over full or you got a blown head gasket, you got too much crankcase pressure. This particular one takes its pulse off from the dipstick tube. You can get oil in there and it'll pump out that little stone breather. These pumps do go bad. If they get oil in them, they have to work too hard and they just wear out. So here we got some sort of a electrical problem we're going to have to check out. We can turn the key, but we got nothing. The battery's charged up. The solenoid, unfortunately, is really hidden in this tractor. Down underneath the battery box, you got to take the battery out to get at it. There's no way to get at it from the bottom or the back. So we're going to pop the battery out. We're going to clean all the connections that are involved with the solenoid, the battery cables, the wires that trigger the solenoid. Turned out in our case here, there was some rust and corrosion on the wire that actually sends the 12-volt signal to the solenoid. I believe that was pretty much our problem. We put it all back together and it did work. Just one of those things that happens. When you get a tractor that's sat around for a little while, has been sitting outside a little while, these are the kind of things that come up, and you got to address each thing as you come across it. I did explain earlier that the little plug on the side of the engine, everything traced out okay, and it did plug in exactly how I thought. So as we dig into this thing, you can see the solenoid here is buried down inside the battery area. It's where the red cable's going right there. You can see the two nuts sticking out. On the bottom side of that, on that wiring harness coming by the side of it, is where the two connectors are. One is the connector to ground the solenoid, and the other one is the connector giving the 12 volts to the solenoid, and that's the one that was rusty and corroded. So here we are. We actually got the thing to crank now, and we're going to attempt to start this thing, and we're going to see if it works. Unfortunately, there's no microphone here, so you have to take my word for it. We did crank it. We don't have a throttle cable for this yet. I have the one that came off the John Deere tractor. It doesn't really fit what I need here, so I need to come up with a cable for this thing. I have to believe there's a cable available through Cub Cadet for this motor in this machine. And I'm missing the little clip right there where my thumb is that holds the cable down to this governor plate. Here it is running, but it's surging a little bit, and you can see it's surging. If you could hear it, it's surging with the choke off. If I give it a little bit of choke, like you can see the arm going ahead, pushing on that choke rod, it smooths out. That's telling me that it's running a little too lean. I'm going to have to pull this carburetor off again. I am getting a little bit of leakage around the bowl area, which is telling me one of my O-rings is bad, probably the one that seats the area where the needle and seat goes. So I'm going to run to Harbor Freight, and I'm going to buy a Viton O-ring kit, and there's two O-rings in there that will fit. You want to use Viton on this for anything that's going to hit fuel or oil. Check out the videos online. Here the tractor's running. You can see the paper towel on my thumb from catching it in the flywheel when I was running this motor without the blower shroud on it. Never do that. That's just bad habits. But there it is with the mower deck engaged, and everything seems to be cruising along fine. Got the thumbs up. So that's it for this video. Like I said, check out some the videos about Niki carburetors. There's a lot of them out there, a lot of information, a lot of good information, a lot of good advice from other content providers. You know, we will check you again and catch you on the next video.